all our users are fake. I can just stick in any email address and it'll just trust me. There needs to be some bottom padding in this thing. Sign in, form, padding bottom. How did I miss that yesterday? That's hideous. So much better. Okay. Anyway, this form does fake stuff, right? We want to sign in for real. And we're already using a back-end service that has authentication features built right in. So how hard can it be? Look at this authentication tab over here just tempting us. In your Firebase console, go to the authentication section. Authenticate and manage users from a variety of providers without server-side code. Let's set up a sign-in method. Cool. Email, phone, Google, Play Games, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub, anonymous. I don't know what that. Yeah, Google Play Games. It is another Google thing, but I don't know. Google authentication should be pretty easy. Just click on it. Google Sign is automatically configured on your connected iOS and web apps. Set up Google Sign-In for your Android apps. Well, I guess I'm glad we're not doing that. Cool. Let's just click Enable. Save. Google's enabled. Now what? Look at right here. Go to the docs. Let's go to the docs. Shall we? Remember, this is here. Go to docs. Go to guides. Here's a whole section about authentication. Here's Google Sign-In right here. Let's read all about it. So by the way, all of these sign-in methods use a standard called OAuth, which you may have heard of, or OAuth 2. Just so you know, but we don't have to know the details of how that works because Firebase does all the hard work for us. So let's authenticate using Google Sign-In with JavaScript. Okay. Before you begin, add Firebase to your JavaScript project. Got it. Enable Google Sign-In in the Firebase console. That's what we just did. Handle the sign-in flow with the Firebase SDK. If you're building a web app, that's the easiest way. Good enough for me. If we want to authenticate using Node.js or another non-browser environment, it's not that easy. But we are in a browser environment, so we're good. To handle the sign-in flow with the Firebase JavaScript SDK, follow these steps. Create an instance of the Google Provider object. var provider equals new firebase.auth.googleauthprovider. What file do you think we're going to do this in? I like it. Let's start doing that. So in base.js, which you may remember is not actually committed to your repository, I've got the morning stuff commented out here.
If it's not committed to our repository, we can't have GitHub post our websites.
Yeah, you're going to have to commit it sooner or later if you want to actually have this thing run somewhere. So mostly I wanted to teach you about gitignore. Truth is, this isn't that secret because this totally won't work unless it's being sent to the browser anyway. So if your API key were that precious for Firebase, you'd be screwed. But you whitelist domains and stuff, so it's fine. It'll be fine. We'll get there. So, oops. Yeah. We didn't do this yet. What? Huh? Nothing? Huh? Okay, cool. So this is just exactly what it looked like. So we need provider, new Firebase auth. So the database thing is related to Rebase. This auth stuff has nothing to do with Rebase. So I'm going to put those things there by themselves, and I'll put my authentication related stuff here. So let's paste that in. var provider equals new firebase.auth.googleauthprovider. Now I'll go ahead and tell you without you encountering the error. We're going to have to import Firebase auth now. By the way, Before we had import database from Firebase database, you can just say import Firebase database, and then your console will stop complaining to you that database is defined and never used. Import Firebase database, import Firebase auth. If I had just said import Firebase from Firebase, I wouldn't have had to do those things. But Firebase has a whole lot of modules in it that we don't need. So we're doing it one at a time. We're doing the app, we're doing the database, we're doing auth. So what that means is I now have Firebase.auth. That's now a thing. So this provider, the new instance of Google Auth Provider. We don't use var, we use const. And one of these days we might support more than one means of signing in. So I'll name my variable Google Provider specifically. Cool. So create an instance of the Google Provider object. Optional, specify additional OAuth 2.0 scopes that you want to request. 3 optional. 4 optional. 5, authenticate with Firebase using the Google Provider object. You can prompt your users to sign in with their Google accounts either by opening a pop-up window or by redirecting to the sign-in page. The redirect method is preferred on mobile devices. Pop-up is a little easier for in-class, so we're going to use pop-up. So to sign in with a pop-up window, call sign in with pop-up. Firebase.auth, open close parens, .sign in with pop-up, and then you pass in that Google Auth provider. So this part probably shouldn't happen in base.js. This is the actual sign in. This is what should happen when we click a button. So I'm not going to do that just yet, but this Firebase auth thing. So I don't have Firebase available in any other files right now. So what I'm going to do, since I call sign in with pop-up on Firebase.auth, open close parens, whatever that auth function returns is the object I want to call this on. So I'm going to actually make a variable for that. Const auth equals Firebase.auth, open close parens. Then I'm going to export both of those things. Export const Google Provider, export const auth. So that way they can be imported as named imports. So default import without the curly braces, right? Named imports with the curly braces like we do for component. So now we're exporting Google Provider and auth, and we can import those. What component you think we want to import these in? Sounds good to me. Let's go to sign in. Right now, we have handle submit for this form that's totally fake. Let's just add another button below this form. I'm going to say or another button sign in with Google. Type equals button, not submit. So we're going to put an on click here. And this is probably going to call like this dot authenticate, which we haven't written yet. You've heard dress for the job you want, not the job you have. Write for the function you want, not the function you have. This dot authenticate is what I want to do when I click. So let's go write that. Authenticate. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We said we wanted to import those things that we exported, right? So we exported Google Provider and auth from base.js. So at the top here, let's import inside curly braces auth and Google Provider from /base. And since we changed base.js, we should probably change base.example.js as well. Because if you don't commit that thing to your repo and you try to look at it later and your stuff's not working and you don't remember what you forgot, it'd be nice if this were up to date. So let's change it to match this more closely. So we changed our imports. And now we have this auth stuff down here. Cool. Okay. Now our base example matches base.js. So what should Authenticate do? Firebase.auth, open close parens, which I have imported as just auth. Dot sign in with pop-up. There it is. And I pass in a provider object, which we called Google Provider. Then they have a bunch of other stuff after this. Anybody seen this .then business before? Anybody know what that is? Yeah.
Like do two things in one line with the same object that you're referring to.
Not exactly. So you're just thinking of chaining methods in general. So what's happening here is sign in with pop-up returns a thing called a promise. So the deal is sign in with pop-up runs in the background. So I can't just like get some user object back from this and start using that on the next line, because the next line will run immediately. It won't wait until sign in with pop-up has finished. So that's asynchronous. Yeah, so you're waiting for it to finish, and then it will run the callback that you throw into then. So there's lots of ways of doing asynchronous programming now. This is using promises. So promises are these objects that you can call .then on. We're not going to get crazy getting into promises here, but we'll see what's going on here. So sign in with pop-up .then, and it looks like it gets some sort of result that maybe has some user information in it. How about this? We'll have a callback here that takes a response and just logs that. Console.log response. So we can see what this object is. So only after signing with pop-up actually finishes will it call our callback here. So let's check it out. Here's our button, teeny tiny. Check out our console. Click it. Ooh, pop-up. Who should we sign in as? How about this Dave? Yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's the object that it returned. So it has keys, additional user info, credential, operation type, user. User sounds good. User has a whole bunch of stuff in it. Here's display name. Here's email. Email verified, true is anonymous, false. Phone number, null, nice try. Ooh, there is a photo. There is a photo though. UID, that's good. So it gives us a user object. So whatever, so response.user is that user object. So what do we want to happen? We want to call handle auth passing in a user, right? So what if in here I say this.props.handleAuth response.user? See that? So it'll call this function when it finishes signing in with pop-up. It'll pass in this response object, and I'll take response.user out of that and pass it into this props.handleAuth. Let's try it. Sign in with Google. Here I am. I have no name, but I do have an avatar. What if I try to say something? Me. Oh, everything explodes. Now this is an interesting error message. One quick fix for this is we're using username, and we don't have a username, right? So how about we use display name instead? So I'm going to search through my app, Shift Command F. I'm going to search for every occurrence of username. I'm going to change it to display name. So inside metadata, I'll change it to message.user.displayname. Inside sign in, I'll make this display name. This is just my fake login anyway, but inside user info, I'll say user.displayname. How about now? Okay, now with 100% less exploding. It's still a little excessive, all this stuff we're putting inside user. How about inside app? Too many files. How about inside handle auth? Instead of just passing this user in as is, I'll name this argument OAuth user, and then I'll make a variable called user. And I'll just take out the fields I actually want. I want UID to be OAuth user.uid. I want display name to be OAuth user.displayname. I want email to be OAuth user.email. I think that's about all I need. I like that better. It's a lot of fields that we don't need. Just could if you wanted to. What was it? It was a photo URL, I think. Is that what it was called? I'm not console logging that anymore. What a great exercise for you to do at home. Sign in with Google. Do the thing. Here we go. Photo URL is what it's called. All caps URL. Sure, if you wanted to, you can do that. Now that's not very Reacty to put URL all caps, so I'm going to put RL lowercase. Inside our app, we're gonna do it our way. Then we can use that later if we want to. Okay. Now we can sign in that way. Sign out works that way. Anything wrong with this? Button's pretty ugly. Our other button already has a class name on it, so how about I just reuse that? Good enough for me. Yeah, let's put those in the other order. That's better. Now it overflows this. For some crazy reason, I put a height on form. I don't know why. That's not necessary. Here we go. That's better. Now, of course, this thing doesn't actually do anything. So for the time being, I think I'm just going to comment that one out. So my input for my label, my input, and my OR here, I'm just going to comment out using command /. There we go. That could use a Google logo. We got Font Awesome open already. They got brands in here. There we go. Hashtag brands. Don't forget class name, right? That's a little crowded. So, my style sheet down here. I'll add a new style for brand icon. Give it a margin right of 1 rem. Here's my icon. Now it already has a class name, so I'm going to have to do a template literal here because I need that fab and FA Google to stay in there. Then I'll use string interpolation to say CSS styles dot brand icon. There we go. Now we got room. That's a handsome button. I can sign in. I can say things. Peek. Achoo! Why not? All right. Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Authenticate. What was my commit message this morning? How did I write that? Yeah. Use Google Authentication with Firebase. Not too bad.